All right. Welcome, everybody. This is a coaching for coaches session with me. And I like to facilitate topics I most need to learn. So you guys are all here to help me out, and I'm super appreciative. My name is Phil Valentine. But for the grace of God, I haven't had a drink or a drug since December 28th, 1987. What is this? 25. So 37 years of recovery, working on year 38. Retired now for 6 months roughly as my role as the executive director of the Connecticut Community for Addiction Recovery. I was there for 25 years. Started there when I was the second employee hired in 1999, and saw the agency grow to about 75 people, and has now turned it over to Miss Stacy Charpentier, woman extraordinaire who is now leading the organization. Also, we developed the Recovery Coach Academy, the Recovery Coach Professional Designation, and Recovery Coach Professional Facilitator as well. And I'm here to talk to you guys a little bit about the topic for today is angler. Where did angler come from? Well, there were 6 A's, kind of like put together some things always in my life of I don't know. I have this book of life. Khalees is well known with it. And it's just a book that has no lines. And I draw lots of things on it. And one of the things when I was figuring out what is it I wanted to do when I retired, right? It became 6 A's. And we'll see if I can remember them all. But one of them is angler. I still wanted to be an advocate for people in recovery. I wanted to be an author. We talked about being an artist and an adventurer. And the last A is an athlete to try to keep myself physically fit enough to do the other five. And right now, I don't know how well I'm doing with that part because my body's giving me a little trouble, a little feedback. So today we've done a lot of those. We'll do some more of them. We're going to do angler because I am a fisherman at heart. I love to fish, especially off the beach here in Rhode Island and a lot of times on the Cape Cod in Massachusetts. Um, so today I want you to tell me about give me your name, where you are sitting, and I'm sitting in Charlestown, Rhode Island right now on Deer Run. And do you have a fish story? Do you have a fish story? And it doesn't have to be a long, extravagant fish story. I see your hands up, Cleese, but I'm going to tell you this is a fish story I've told for decades, literally. And so one day my buddy Arno and I, also known as Shortcast, we were at the Cape Cod and we were going to go fish early in the morning one day off the beach. So we got up before the sun rose, cast our baits out. They were like squid and not really just enjoying the sunrise. And a guy walks down to the beach, goes out to the point, fires off a long cast, and he hooks up immediately. And catches like a 10-pound bluefish. And I'm like, whoa. And then he lets that go. He casts another one, hooks up right away. Bam. And then Arno and I, being seasoned, brilliant fishermen, we looked at each other since we weren't catching anything and said, let's go there. And so as soon as I picked up my fishing rod and moved that squid about this far along the bottom, a big old striped bass just came and went, pow. And I caught him. He was like 40 inches long. So I let him go. We walked up the dune. I'm carrying this box of squid that's now all melty and soggy and drippy and Arno's, who has one eye and half a foot, he's limping up the dune behind me, and he's dressed similarly. And this guy drives up in a brand new Ford Explorer, fly rods on the top. He's got the latest Sims overalls on, fishing waders, binoculars, hats with the little flies in, and he scans the beach up and down with his binoculars. And he goes, looks at us and goes, huh, anything going on? And I said, well, as a matter of fact, I just got a nice bass down there in the hole, and the guy out on the point caught two bluefish. And he looks at me and he goes, yeah, right. And then sure enough, the guy with all the right stuff, all the evidence-based practices, got in his truck and drove away. And as I was walking down back to the car, Arno was like, I should have talked to him. He didn't believe you. And I said, I told him the truth. What he does with it is up to him. So that was a fish story I've told for many, many moons. Khalees, long time no see. How have you been? I've needed my coach lately. Where you been?
Oh, I'm good. I've been busy. My, it's funny because whenever you said fish story, I actually have a fish story from today. So, so I was talking with my son this morning. He's currently out of school, and we're like, "What are we gonna do for dinner?" Last night we forgot to thaw a protein out, and he's like, "We have to have protein because he loves meat in his life." So we had some salmon. So we had some salmon, and then life goes on. You get busy throughout the day, and I told him, I said, "Will you put it in some water and thaw it out, sit it outside?" And then later, he's like, "Mom, have you seen my fish in the backyard?" And
Uh-oh.
I'm like, what is this kid talking about? I'm looking out in the backyard. I'm like, what are you talking about? What fish? We don't have any water in our backyard. We don't have anything. And he's like, Mom, look a little closer. And he was talking about the salmon that I told him to thaw out. And so he was like, did you see my fish in the backyard? And he was talking about his thawed out salmon. And
Yeah.
so that's my fish story.
And where are you sitting? Where's your backyard?
In Lincolnshire, UK.
United Kingdom.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, Phil. Let me get unmuted. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Awesome. I'm way up in the UP sitting in my car. You can't see it, but I'm on Lance Bay. So it's a perfect place for a fish story. Only my fish story is a little backwards because when I was in high school, I grew up on this little inland lake and I fished daily and we ate fish daily. And my fish story is while I still love seafood, I don't care how great the salmon is out of this bay. I do not eat fish anymore. I'm sick of fish. I don't clean it. I don't scale it. I don't want to see it. My wife can eat it. Yeah.
Okay. That went a different direction, but I love it.
I always do.
Yeah, cool. Lisa, hi.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name is Lisa Ardner. I am sitting in central New York. I have a lot of fish stories, actually. My grandparents had a camp on DeRidder Lake, so we um, had to learn very young how to put worms on our hook. I didn't like taking the fish off the hook, but I went camping one time when I was probably 12 with a friend of mine, and I was so excited because I was the only one who caught a fish, and I kissed it, and she snapped a picture of it and thought that was the funniest thing. So there's my fish story.
Do you have the picture?
I do. I'll have to find it. I haven't seen it in a while.
I want to show it to us. I want to see it. Mustafa.
Hi, I'm Mustafa. I'm sitting in Providence at Rye Cares. And my fish story is the only time I went fishing was once in my lifetime with my dad. He took me, I was like 10 years old. And we went fishing. And finished, I didn't catch a fish. I caught an eel. So the pole and the eel and the fish went in the water because I wasn't, I, I didn't do snakes.
Oh
Yeah,
my
kind of thought I was
God.
an eel. So I had one of them push button poles, the little smaller kid poles. And I just caught it. I said, oh, shoot, and threw the whole thing in the water. So that's my fish story.
Wow. You haven't been fishing
I
since.
haven't been
No,
fishing
thank
since.
you. I got you. Hi, George.
Phil, last time I saw you was about 6 years ago. I was just starting out as a coach, and you and I had a heated conversation about recovery coach because I felt it was light and a loafer, right? I said, no, it's got to be Advocate. It's got to be Advocate. And it was you, myself, and a friend of mine, Ben Riker, right?
Hmm.
And here's the deal. You're absolutely right. 6 years later, learning this art, doing what I'm supposed to do, a perfect it's a perfect name for it. I just wanted to give you a chance to say, hey man, you were right 6 years ago.
Oh, thank you. I wish that I could say I remembered the conversation,
No,
but
but I did. And
all right.
that's the important thing. I
Yeah, well, okay. Do you have a fish story for
I
us?
do. I
And,
do.
and where are you sitting?
I'm sitting at work at Delaware Opportunities in Delaware County, New York. I run the Recovery Peer Program at a community action agency. We just started 2 years ago, and it's
Hmm.
we're resource brokers, and I knew we would be okay. We'd affect some people, but the the efficacy being in a community action agency is off the hook. Off
Good.
the hook. So
Yeah.
I go fishing every other year with a buddy of mine. We go down to Costa Rica all the time.
Whoa.
And I love being out in the ocean and doing it. So we go to this place called Crocodile Bay Lodge, and we're two New Yorkers. Everybody else is from Texas, and uh, they're not nice. So we got connected with the guy who runs it. We've been down there 6 times, and he brought us to an illegal place for fishing. But we went with another boat. We didn't go with the boat, and we sat in this hole, and my best friend and I sat in this hole. We caught the first thing I threw a line down. I caught a 200-pound grouper. It was,
Whoa.
and so we were there for 4 hours, and my friend, myself, the captain, and the mate came in with over 1,400 pounds of fish, and the last one being at the end, the captain said, "This has been such a good day. Let's do one more." So we threw out a bonita, and we caught a 400-pound black marlin. I've never experienced anything like that, and it was the first trip that I've taken sober. So it was like that's my fishing story,
Whoa.
and I
That,
have pictures.
well, you just planted a seed for me. Like now that I'm retired and can do things, maybe I'll go to Costa Rica and go fishing. What was the name of the what was the name of the place?
Crocodile Bay Lodge.
Crocodile Bay Lodge. Thank you.
It's awesome. Thank you.
Oh, we could get sidetracked, but let's keep going. Ed, how are you, Ed, my friend?
I am well, thank you, Phil. Ed Havlovic, and I'm sitting here in Weehawken, New Jersey. Um, I grew up in the Midwest on a large farm, and we had a pasture on that farm along with all of our cropland. And the pasture had a pond. So we, as small kids, my siblings would always walk down and just, it was an escape for us, and we just had quiet afternoons fishing. However, the first experience that I had with fishing, I probably was in kindergarten, and they had this festival, and they had these little 3 foot plastic fishing rods, and at the end were magnets,
Yeah.
and you had to cast it, and hopefully your magnet would catch a little paper magnet, and on that was a prize that you would win. I don't know why, when I went down to the pond for the first time fishing, uh, I was looking for magnets so I could go fishing. It just didn't work that way.
That's
It
funny.
was not about attraction, it was about hooking.
Uh-huh.
That's my story.
Ooh, there you go. I like it. Come on, Michael. Where are you and what's your fish story?
I got a lot of fish stories, but I'll give you one. I was in a school where we occupied Knox Park Foundation is a program here in Hartford that they have, and I was a student there, and they asked us if we wanted to go to Granby to put in the channels to put little baskets for bass, right, so they can hide. And the guy that was bringing us out there, he was an expert of all this, right? And he's telling us how to walk through this trail and all this. And all of a sudden, this guy gets to this rock right there. I looked at, I was like, man, I'm not stepping on that rock. That rock is like real, like I'm not stepping there. And he goes, no, no, it's safe, it's safe. And I remember him stepping, and he just went into the river, and we just saw him. And when he came back, like 10 minutes later, he came back through like the woods. He had fish in his pockets. I was like, he didn't even know. He had this jacket on, and he had one in each pocket, and then a little baby fish in this little small pocket. And I was like, we all started laughing because I broke the silence, right? Because he came back. I was like, well, it looks like you went fishing without us, and everybody just started cracking up because he was like, what are you talking about? He was the only one that didn't notice. Everybody noticed that there were fish in his pockets. So that's my fish story.
That's a good one. Thank you. Okay. So, hello, there's people in New Haven, I think, down there. And good to see you. Or is that New Haven or New London? New Haven?
That's New
Right?
London. New London.
It's New London, and it says NHRCC. Are they trying to throw us a curveball?
No, it says NL. It says NL.
Mine says it. Oh, there's an NH right next to it.
Oh yeah, there is. Oh, yeah, y'all did a snickeroonie.
They're both here. Maybe we're all right. We're good. They're both here. Um, help me define the word angler. Define that for me. You don't have to Google it or look it up. Define the word angler. What's that mean to you? This is where like one of you like chimes in, you like raise your hand or you unmute yourself or you talk in. I thought my cue was obvious here.
I uh uh Angler for me is something happened to me yesterday. I've been working with this young girl. She's 21 years old, and nobody's been able to kind of like get to her. So we've been talking the last couple of weeks, and I was looking for ways for her to let me in. And her mother came out, and they started talking, and what occurred is something that I hadn't noticed before, and I wanted to validate to them because their love of each other was extraordinary. They laughed the same way, they smiled the same way. It was almost as if I was trying to find a way in, trying to gain trust and angle myself in a way, drop the nut, maybe they'll grab it. So
Yeah, that's a good example. So how would you define angler, George? How would you define it?
uh wow.
Okay, we can go on.
Yeah,
That's
yep.
a thing. How do you define angler?
I mean, I do it all the time.
Oh,
I
yeah.
mean, I think I want to say an angler is creating an opportunity.
Oh, I like that.
So I'll stick with
Anybody else? Define angler. I know a lot of
Hey,
you.
yeah,
Hi,
it's Sarah.
Sarah.
How are you?
Good.
I was thinking about my brain always goes to like to the literal spot. So I was thinking about somebody like, fishing from the shores who's looking for the sweet spot.
Yeah.
But I think in this context too, it is like that, like just kind of, reading the water, seeing the shadows, and kind of finding the spot to kind of to drop in, you know.
Ooh. I like that. You went to another level with that, Sarah. I see like it rubs off on you if your cousin is a commercial fisherman in Rhode Island, definitely. Ed,
Uh, this is puzzling because I know what an angler is. I think it's someone
tell
who
me.
someone who fishes.
Okay.
But
Someone who
but
fishes.
but my
Keep it
mind is
simple,
saying
right?
exactly, Phil. But my
Hmm.
mind is saying angles as in mathematical angles, a right
Hmm.
angle or a
Hmm.
45-degree angle. And I'm going, what the heck does that have to do with a fisherman? And I'm not
Uh-huh.
making any connection here, but I'm sure
Okay.
there is a connection somehow.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Mustafa.
Searching for a way in.
Ooh, searching for a way in. Okay. Anybody else? Mike?
I like the idea of an angle. I think we look for that angle that will attract someone into recovery because fishing is about attracting.
Oh, gotcha. Sandy, how are you?
Hi, I was thinking about someone who knows the lay of the land and knows when to drop the bait. Um, kind of like uh, anticipation,
Mm, cool.
recognizing when the timing is right.
Oh, I love that. Good morning, Michelle. How are you?
I'm very well. And you?
Well enough.
Well enough. Well enough.
Yep.
Let's chat. Let's chat soon.
Okay.
All right. So you know me, I always come from things from a little different place.
Hmm.
Um, so I don't know, maybe it's my background. When I hear angler, I think of, someone who's like, I think it was Ed just said, trying to find their way in.
Hmm.
Um, but trying to I know what I want to say, but trying to find their way in, but also might be not with the best of intentions. Like, um, yeah, kind of like scheming.
Yeah.
That's how I feel about it. Yeah, kind of
Okay.
scheming.
Gotcha. Um, okay, so let's oh, Khalees.
Well, because that's interesting. I just kind of picked up on it's because I literally wrote this down and then Michelle just said it. But like whenever, so my notes, I put an angler is patiently engaging the unknown. We don't know what's going to happen, but maybe we believe that there's something better below the surface, right? We believe in what's possible. We believe in opportunities. We believe we're going to catch something, right? But then I also put the angler offers a lure and a line, and that could be connection and deception. I don't know. So,
Well,
yeah.
so let
What are
me
my
just
motives? What are my motives and intentions? The connection and because it could be for good motives or I don't know. See, this is me in my head.
That's exactly what I was like. I couldn't put into words. Like it can be both.
why did you use the word patiently engaging the unknown? Why patiently?
Because I ain't trying to scare anything away. I'm trying to catch something.
So,
That means I need to be willing to I can't because that's okay, come on, you want to bring it back to coaching. We meet people where they're at. I can't to make a horse drink the water, right?
well, I don't know. So let me ask you a question. You
Oh,
ever
come
hear
on.
anybody like dynamiting a pond? Are they anglers?
Hmm. I,
I don't know. Michael's cracking up. I just like to throw the little curveball in there now and again.
what?
Michael, go ahead.
I keep thinking of the word angle, right? And thinking
Yeah.
of like, let's look at this in a different way. Like you, right? When you were fishing with your buddy, you guys weren't catching anything, then you saw somebody that was. So you shift ideas, shift angles, right? And
Oh
you said,
yeah.
I'm gonna drop this here. And then you told somebody else how you were looking at it, the angle you were, and they didn't believe you,
Yeah, that's true.
right? So I look at it like that, like let's look at it in a different way, right? If we're gonna drop this, let's look at different ways of doing it before we drop it.
Yeah, there was another story I told a lot that, and this will all tie in. We'll get to recovery coaching. Is Arno and I were driving out to Race Point, the tip of Cape Cod, and there was like It was a northeaster, and there were 50 or 60-mile-an-hour winds. The foam was just moving so hard, the breakers, that it was a little dangerous to be on the beach. And there was no one else fishing. There was one other truck out there. The wind was blowing so hard, the sand was blasting the side of the truck, and the truck was shaking. And then we see this old guy, maybe somebody as old as Ed, got out of the, got out of the truck and like could barely stand up against the wind. And he grabs his fishing rod. And Arnold, I'm like, Arnold, we're gonna have to go save this effing dude. What's up with this guy? And so he goes up to the edge of the foam, and I thought he was gonna get swept away. He takes his rod, he casts like 10 yards. And he pulls back once and bam, fish on. And Arno and I, being seasoned, brilliant fishermen, looked at each other and said, "Let's go." And we caught more fish in that wild water. And I lost probably the biggest fish of my life in that surf. I mean, it was just incredible. And as guys pulled up and saw all of us with our rods and bent with fish on and fish on the beach, they started fishing and they caught. The point to that is that guy as old as Ed, actually went out there and tested the water. I mean, he tested the water, and nobody would have caught anything if you didn't try, right? Sometimes you just have to try. So
Yep, that
my
was
question,
his
yeah,
view,
go
his
ahead.
angle. He saw it. If you would have, he would have never seen that angle. You would have never seen it. You guys would have never
Oh,
went out there.
yeah, I don't know if we would have or not. We might have said we came all the way here. We might have, but as soon as we saw him hook up, we were like, "Well, yeah, we're going."
Yeah.
Khalees.
I think you asked too, like, why did I say patient? And what I
Yeah.
come to is I talk about being present all the time whenever I'm coaching, facilitating, whatever. And if we are not patient and present, then we miss, let's throw it back to your angler reference, the tug. We miss the tug, the subtle tug of
Yeah.
them. And we
Hmm.
miss those opportunities if we are not patient and present.
Oh,
So
I
that's
had never thought about because like there's a fishing, like a slogan, like the tug is the drug. And but that's that pull on the line, that's like when the fish hits. But I never thought of it in terms of like actually coaching police. That's pretty cool. I like that.
Mhm.
Sarah.
I was just thinking, we're also not scared of what can seem like a storm to other people, right? Because we've either been there ourselves or we've seen how we get better, right? And how circumstances change.
Yeah, so play that a little more into going to like the coaching world.
Yeah, I was just thinking,
Afraid of
like,
the storm.
afraid of the storm. So, like, whether that storm is like what the chaos that someone might have in their life, right? If there's chaotic use or chaotic circumstances or all of the above, or some of the spaces that we are in with people. But I think also like with present circumstances, right? Like when you have that experience, you're not afraid of the storm and you know that we can come out the other side. Um, so with that comes yeah, the ability to kind of enter into those spaces and model for others how to do that. Whether
Yeah,
it's like on the
that's
side of
cool.
like being in recovery or as being a coach,
Yeah, I
both.
agree because I think like Sarah put it, you put in that's the best time, and that would have been my grandfather, Sandy says. But it's kind of like sometimes when the water is the wildest and the stormiest, the fishing is the best. So it's kind of like it doesn't make a lot of sense sometimes. But as you dive into it, you start to understand that when the wind is pushing the smaller bait fish against the shore, they're disoriented in the currents and the chaos. That's just when the predators, the bigger fish that you're after, come in and start to feed. Yeah, cool. Let's see, this is going places. I love this. So, as a recovery coach, what are we angling for? As a recovery coach, what are we angling for?
Connection.
Okay. I like that. Connection.
For people to tug.
Okay.
Say resistance is a sign of life.
Resistance is a sign of life. Yeah, it's almost better to work with somebody who's angry and defiant, at least I think so, than somebody that's completely apathetic.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. All right. What are we angling for? When you're asking questions, that's what are you angling for? Michelle.
When I'm asking those questions, I think I'm angling for acceptance, acceptance of where the recovery is at, acceptance in the role that I may, the mutuality of our roles, um, acceptance of, and their acceptance of what is happening in their life, kind of like acceptance slash realization. Um,
So is
accept,
it's acceptance on the recoveries part of the
yes,
situation.
but
Gotcha.
you know what, on mine too,
Yeah.
of mine too, how am I the mutuality of it? How am I feeling with this person? Am I
Gotcha.
heading down the right path? Like, am I putting the lure in the water in the right place?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Um, I think I also took that sometimes our role is the reality check, what is your reality and all of that. Yeah, Mike.
I want to invite him back into that school, fish school up because it's safer that way. And
Oh,
Michelle used the word mutuality. We're safer in that recovery group, whatever the group is, whatever, method we're using. When I'm isolating, I'm in trouble. And so when I can invite that coachee, that recovery back into the school, they're a lot safer and they're going to, make more progress in their life.
wow, love that. Great analogy. Thank you, Mike. Ed.
I have a nephew who calls himself a professional weekend fisherman or angler.
Hmm.
I've never seen anyone who has more different bait or different hooks. He does his own fly casting and own fly hooks. I think a successful angler is one who knows the right bait that a fish is going to be attracted to or want.
At a
And
given
if
time.
you can find what the
Mhm.
fish is looking for, the type of fish, and what the fish desire is, you will win.
Mhm. So I also am like your cousin. So here's one.
There you go.
This is hand-tied bucktail.
Right?
There's a little surface lure, big swimmer. And I have to tell you that I only have three of them here, but each one of them represents about 10,000 different more that I have in my arsenal. So, and then, we have the little rattle trap. So they're all different kinds. Um, but when you use them and how and where and what conditions and what tides and all that matters and to get the fish to strike. Well said, Ed. Khalees. What are we angling for?
So immediately, like what comes to my mind is I've coached coaches and I've noticed this where coaches sometimes it just turns into regular conversations. And so I've been doing some work around what's your intention behind your questions. And that goes with the motive. And a lot of people were like, I don't know what my intention is. And then I got these. And so it's kind of like, what is your intention behind what we're doing here? Where are we trying to go? And so intentions are all different. It can be to discover truths, for them to discover something about themselves, for them to notice patterns. It could be, have you overcome something like this before, whatever. But our angle can be different based on where that individual is at and where they're headed.
So, oh, man,
And I
okay.
think, okay, I also put too,
Is it so if
I,
you're ang let me just explore this idea of intentions. So, and it kind of goes to what Michelle was saying too. When we're at our intention, that's a great question to ask the coaches, by the way. What is your intention behind these conversations? That is phenomenal. It's almost what you can ask the recovery, right?
yeah,
What
that's
is
a great
what
question
is
to ask a recovery.
Yeah.
right?
Why not?
Okay. What is your intention for this session or for our relationship? What is it? Or
Exactly.
even more so, what is your intention about with a life in recovery?
Yeah,
What does that, it's kind of like, what does that look like for you?
exactly.
What does that look like for you?
And something else I put is, am I drawing people toward their truth or my agenda? That's something I need to remember. We need to keep ourselves in check as coaches as well. Am I angling
It's
for
true.
theirs or for my what I think is best? Right.
Yeah. Michelle. Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So, I had a sponsor that once said to me, check your motives, double check them, triple check them, check your motives. What are you trying to do really? Like, what is that your motive behind that? Is it a true motive? Is it a loving motive? But when Ed went following up on what Ed was saying, and I think you're young, Ed. I don't think you're old.
Okay, well,
But
maybe that guy was as old as you, Michelle.
well, and that's probably true. So, that's what we have to stick together in our old age,
Yeah, yeah,
or in our wisdom, which I
right.
heard yesterday.
Mhm.
That isn't the lure, where the recovery is, it goes down to one of those basic things that you talk about in the academy, day one, asking the good questions. Is
Mhm.
that the lure, And if you're asking those good questions, I always say, if you're asking good questions and you get that answer that you're looking for, or is a semblance of that, you get the gold star for a day, because you've created that crack, that opening to kind of angle in a little bit more, you
Mhm.
know. Um, but I love that, what is your intention, right? So is the intention for that recovery to just sit and have a conversation that day, or is it someone who's really searching for help, who wants you to kind of find the angles to get in there? And I think a lot of it has to do with asking those good questions and watching body language, what and if you go back to what I said at the beginning, what angle am I going to use here? And I don't like that word really, except when I think of a fisherman, but
Mhm.
I don't like angle seems, I don't know, like what's your angle? Like really negative to me. So I'd rather like where does this go? Like what's the flow of this? How do I find out what they need, what they're thinking? How do they
Well,
find out?
yeah, the angle, when you use that, it's like a salesman, right? What's my angle to get in and sell you something? Or
Yeah.
it's very self-serving. But that's why I asked, what are we angling for? Anybody else have any other thoughts? What are we angling for? New Haven, did you want to jump in? All I have to do is unmute yourself there. Oh, you had it. There you
Am I
go.
in there?
You are.
Um, all right. I don't know
Good
if
to
I'm
see
got
you.
anything. Nice to see you too, Phil. I think with the angle, I'm looking for an approach to make a connection. You know, from the fisherman's point, I want to hook up. But from a recovery point, I'm trying to build some kind of relationship so that they trust me so that I can find out actually what they think recovery is, what they want to do, and um, what pathway they think is going to work for them.
Yeah.
I also realize that for me, it's always about learning more about myself. So, whatever they may want to try might not be something that's attractive to me, and I have to rein myself in and see if it's actually something that's going to be beneficial for them or even beneficial for me in the past. I find that the things that I doubt the most or I'm the most resistant to are usually the things that I need to do. So
Yeah.
that's what I look at.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing. Appreciate that. Anybody else? What are we angling for?
This is Percy Smith. How's everybody? Can you hear me?
Uh, sorta.
Sort of, kind of. You hear me now?
Now, perfect.
Okay, gotcha. Now I want to put two words together that came to me very clear: the intentionality of a relationship, building hope. What when I engage, it's about building this relationship to instill some hope in them.
Hmm. Okay. How would like instilling hope tie into angling or fishing? Does it?
Well, see, and that's where you go into your bag of hooks, and I go
Lures.
into my bag of tricks.
Oh, all right. All
And
right.
I go into, and what I mean by the bag of tricks is
Mm-hmm.
understanding where they come from,
Okay.
working on where they're trying to go. And
Okay.
as I dig in to the personality, my my intentional my intentional trait would be to ask them, what do they really want out of this process, out of this journey? And
Yeah.
how can Coach Smith help you? Because I'm here to help you.
Gotcha. That's well
I'm, I'm
said.
yeah, I'm here to help you. And I go to the old saying, I'm gonna take you to the water, but I can't make you drink it.
Mm-hmm. Or as Father Martin said, you can make them really thirsty.
Really thirsty, and as I ask the basic questions
Mm-hmm.
about them, they begin to answer their own unsolved questions or unsolved issues.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Percy.
You're welcome.
Anybody else? What are we thinking about? What are we angling for? When Michael asked me the question, Phil, as a coach, what are you angling for?
I was going to ask you that. You beat me to it. What are you angling for, Phil, as a coach?
Well, what Art Woodard taught me I think if you can define something simply, then you know it really well. That's like something like I think Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, then you don't know it well enough. And um, it- and you guys have all said this, so I'm just going to say it maybe in a different way. It's that I am angling for heart and meaning. What has heart and meaning for the recovery? That's what Art Woodard taught me. And that's what he always said was the key to any success he had, if he call it success, but his effectiveness as a recovery coach was finding out what has heart and meaning for the recovery. And so that's what I'm fishing for, and the next question would be, what are some of the techniques? Because you guys talked about a lot. You talked about hope, connection, um, accept the school, what their recovery process looked like, um, um, and just really engaging people about what's important to them, their own recovery. And I think, heart and meaning, um, and it doesn't always have to be like, that's what multiple pathways of recovery has opened up. It's not all about, heart and meaning doesn't have to be diving into a 12-step process. Okay, you can dive into the 12-step process, but by doing that for me led me into things that I just thoroughly light me up. That, your eyes get bright with fire that you love doing. I've seen some, pictures of me fishing where I'm lit up because I just love it so much. I don't, and it could, but that's different for everybody. What are some of the techniques you have used to find out to get people to bite, if you will, to carry the fishing analogy a little bit? What are some of the techniques, Lisa? But
You did.
I couldn't help but think, and throughout the conversation about just the word voice just kept kind of resonating with me that, you know, their voice is so important in all of this process. And so, that heart and meaning is going to come from their mouth. It's going to come from them and them speaking it. And so one of the things that is, asking great questions, being a safe presence, being a trusted individual for them to have that conversation with, I think are part of that.
yeah, well, thank you. Rebecca.
Yeah, just exactly what I was going to say, the active listening piece, like just letting them talk and tell their story and listening to them. That's exactly what I was going to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael.
Well, you brought up Art Woodard and I remember having a conversation. He says one of the two most greatest things a coach can have is that curiosity, that curious mind, right, and remaining teachable, right. And
Mhm.
you were saying how you were sitting in your truck with your friend and you seen other people fishing, and it made you curious to
Mhm.
just sit there first to find out what the heck is this person doing, right? And then you find out what the person is doing, and from there you take it and you say, well, let me go because I'm curious. I'm curious to know if I can catch something over there, right? And I think it's always with you have this curious mind all the time to find out the next thing.
So
So having
listening.
that
Yeah.
having that curious heart, right? To find that because you care, not because you're just trying to be nosy, right? You're just trying to find out
Right.
so you can help the person
Hmm.
and
I
remain
mean,
teachable.
yeah, Khalees asked me, what are you angling for by asking us what we're angling for? Uh, Trying to find out what has heart and meaning for you. Yeah. What else? What are some techniques? What are some, do you have any examples? Do you have any like um go-to questions that you love to use or anything at all? Sandy.
I think the questions get everything started, and they're really important to have good questions. But then being a mirror by reflecting back what they're
Mhm.
saying,
Mhm.
so that that the conversation actually becomes internal inside of them. And um, I think I see the most insight when that happens.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. Mustafa.
I found for me, I haven't become a coach yet, but I sit down and where I work and I engage with a lot of people by listening to them when they come to the door. Some people come in there so upset, mad, whatever, and can't get out of their own way just by listening to what they're saying, helping them drive to get to a better place. They could come in upset And then we like leave and come back and like, man, thanks for just listening. Thanks for just hearing me out.
Right. Mustafa, when do you become a coach?
Again,
When do you become a coach?
I'm actually getting ready to take the test. I got all my paperwork done, so
That's the wrong answer, dude.
when do I say that again, Phil?
No, the answer is you're a coach when you say you are. It
Okay.
has nothing to do with the paper that you have or the test that you pass. And I know Sandy's talked enough about you. My wife, Sandy, not the Sandy here. And what you just said, you're a coach, dude. Own it. You're a good coach too, not if not a fantastic one. So just continue. You're
Oh,
already
thanks.
Percy.
Bill, you can give him his certificate right now.
Amen. I agree.
He's a coach right now.
Amen.
My technique is the word freedom.
Yeah.
Diving into the word freedom and be able to
Huh.
listen to their definition and then giving them mine.
Ooh. I'll bite. You dangled that lure in front of me. What's your
Yes,
definition of freedom?
but be, be, being free and able to do anything you want and your mind can achieve.
Ah,
Because I am a returning citizen and I had a life plus 10 sentence. And I
yeah,
had two freedoms: freedom
yeah,
from addiction, freedom from incarceration.
yeah.
And so when I dive into it, I just ask the man, if you keep a clean urine, you can do anything you want to do.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I appreciate that so much. And I love that you've illustrated like in one of your techniques is
Mm-hmm.
diving into the word freedom. What a beautiful example. Thank you, Percy. That's a great example. Ed.
I think for me personally, many times when I'm working with someone, I mean, they have just made a mess of their life, and there's this sense of hopelessness,
Yeah,
etc.
yeah.
So I I'm careful, but I always ask them, if we could give you the power to change your life, what would it look like?
Yeah.
And then the thing I like about that question is they can open up many times of what they really would want to see their lives as. And secondly, you learn a lot about their heart, what's in their heart. And you also learn a lot of meaning of their lives and where they want to take their life.
Yeah, that's a great question. If we could give you the power to change your life, what would that look like?
Exactly.
Something along those lines. Yeah, good.
Yes.
Got it. Thank you. Great example.
And by the way, if we know that, we know the bait to use.
Well, yeah. Where to go? Yeah, that's the cast. You're casting that one out there. A lot of times especially if you're fishing from the beach, well, anywhere and you're using lures, you make a lot of casts before you ever get a fish to hit. You can cast all day and not get anything. I think our odds are a little better when we're actually coaching people than like the actual fishermen. Anybody
Bill,
else?
I do want to say this. In the beginning, I said the confusion always in my mind is as an angle. I always think of mathematical angles, etc.
Yeah.
But I'm listening to all of our conversations is if we are anglers, we have to use tools. And the tool that we always use is a rod and reel. And
Yeah.
it's always at an angle. It is never direct. We
Hmm.
always host and I think what that means to me is sometimes the people we work with are so linear in their vision, they only see one thing. It is from their focus that sometimes when we take a different angle approach at a 45 or a 90-degree angle, we can begin to help them see things that they are not looking at in that linear direction.
Hmm. Yes, and you make a good distinction because like if you're using a big net or a cast net or drop lines or crab pots or lobster pot, that's not really the definition of an angler.
Or an ice
Because,
fisherman.
right, because an angler is a person who fishes with a rod and line. And I just Googled that because I wanted to make that point. So there is that distinction between it's a very specific form of fishing, if you will, with a rod and line. And like if you're fly fishing with a rod or you're casting, angles do make all the difference with that. So that's kind of cool. See, this is like fascinating to me. But I love fishing too, so this is just fascinating. I love that. If I anybody else techniques? Yeah, Khalees. Okay, go Sarah first. I can read her sign language.
Yeah, I just put it in the chat. I just said, genuine interest. And I know we've kind of talked about this, but like, I do really feel like that's one of the best things that I can still utilize is to really convey my genuine interest in people that, we're seeking to coach and be with. And I think the other thing about fishing is that you can do it with other people. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We do it with other people. And like for me, I do identify as a person in recovery, abstinence-based recovery. Um, and I was thinking about all the people who we do sober camping out here. And some people taught me how to fish. And it was like my first summer in recovery. I didn't really know what to do with myself. And I just remember that the kindness and the patience and the time, you know. So I think about all of those kinds of qualities, and yeah, I think that way of just spending time with people together, doing this thing and learning and growing. So I know I'm saying a lot of stuff, but that is part of what really shapes that vision for me. And those are all the different kinds of lures or tools that we can use or that I like to use. And I think that they're the ones too that they're long lasting because they're not attached to like a specific funding stream or a specific objective of a program or a data point that I've got to capture and not to, I'm not dismissing those things. They're a reality that we deal with, but the caring, I think, will always be there and sustain beyond maybe some of those more immediate things. And I do know for me that that's what sticks with people.
Yeah, recovery always finds a way. Recovery finds a way. I also think your point about that you can do it with other people too is like uh, in the sense of fishing and coaching. I think it was you, Michael. I'm not sure, but it was uh, one of the recovery coaches. Maybe it's been a few of them. When they go in, like in the emergency department, and see somebody in the emergency room in the throes of their addiction looking for help, their art of recovery coaching sometimes tells them, well, you could be a coach as well. And they go, what? Yeah. But that's kind of like the thing that the angle, if you will, that shifts the thinking to saying, what? I had never even thought of that. And then we at CCAR, when I left, we had coaches that were seen in the emergency room as a patient, got into recovery, volunteered, took the training, applied, and are now working as emergency department recovery coaches. So they were, it's like the fish turned into the angler. I don't know. Maybe that doesn't quite work, but it's kind of like what happened. The fish turned into the fisherman. How about that? Well, I didn't expect to go there either. Um, Anybody else? What are you guys thinking about? Any other techniques, Khalees?
Well, I'm over here like trying not to repeat everything everybody else has said, but then everything I wrote, I tried to think about like some fishing reference too. So y'all ready?
Yeah.
So here we go. What are some of the techniques? The lure, attraction through resonance. So people are drawn to what mirrors something they've forgotten they needed. And I was reading this article recently. How many of y'all save stuff on social media? You might save a video, you save a clip, save something on Pinterest. we save that because it aspires to what we want to be. And I was like, that is very interesting. So that's what came up to one. Stillness, presence, depth reveals itself in still waters, not turbulent waves. Look at me and on my fishing reference, okay?
Yeah, pretty
Tension,
good.
a little tension on the line, here we go.
Yeah.
Engagement without pressure. People respond to gravity, not grasping. Like I can't, what if objects in motion stay in motion. I put baiting with authenticity. The truth teller attracts the truth seeker. I'm a
Mhm.
big truth person, which Phil, I'm a big truth person.
Mhm.
I put reeling it in, time and trust, knowing when to pull forward and when to give slack. Connection is an art of rhythm. Like we got to know when the push and pull. I put knowing your waters, awareness. You fish differently in shallow waters than deeper ones. So, and then adapting to your environment, knowing, I just think that goes with awareness of what's going on with the individual and the situation and all of that. And then I put letting go when needed, like catch and release. I like this line. The soul respects freedom over force.
Yeah,
And
that's kind of what
and
Percy was talking about for sure.
and not every catch is meant to be kept. And I put an angler, they cast with curiosity, they lure with truth, they wait with presence, and they reel with care. And I like that line too that I wrote. Something else is we sometimes we don't catch anything, and that's okay. But we leave wiser. We learned something, or I learned something. Okay, I'm just gonna say I learned something every time, even if I don't catch anything. Or maybe I did catch something and I just haven't discovered what I caught yet. I caught something in that conversation, but I don't know what yet. I don't know.
Could you maybe you ought to be facilitating this? That was incredible. Did you put all those in the chat or something? Oh my gosh. Or either that, I want you to put them on paper and I would love to
They're
co-author.
look, I wrote them all down. I'll send you a
I
picture.
know, but let's co-author a piece on this of everything we've discovered here from this class. So I hadn't really
Okay.
thought about all that stuff, but that's incredible. Ed. No, you're muted still, dude. It's okay.
I was listening to Khalees and a couple of things came to my mind. The first thought was anglers or fishermen or fisherwomen always do their work from a safe, stable ground. They don't jump in the river. They don't jump in the water to do their angling. They're always safe and secure. The second thought that I was having is that I lost it. Oh no! Please
It'll
help me
come
out
back.
here. It was they always fish from a safe and they don't jump in the water. They're protecting themselves.
Yeah. Well, there's always exceptions to prove those rules, I guess, because there's a technique that was developed off of Montauk where it's called skishing, where they would get in scuba gear and swim out and they would catch fish on their backs and stories of people getting pulled over and you're out there with the sharks and stuff like that. There's also a lot of their guys die in Rhode Island, especially in this place in Narragansett off these rocks where they get swept off the rock, by waves and stuff. So, or jetties. It's not always secure footing. Um, those days for me are long gone, but but I do like mostly that you're on solid ground. I don't know what we say when you're angling from a boat, so I guess that's solid too. It's better than being in the water.
Even in a boat, they wear a vest, though. I was thinking most people wear a vest in a boat.
You would think so.
But
You
Okay,
would think
I said
so.
most. Hey, were you listening? Most people.
So I just got to tell you that part of being a fisherman is there's a whole vein of being an incredible dumbass when you're fishing that just runs through many fishermen that they're not always that bright or that smart, but Maybe this analogy is taking a turn that we don't want to go down.
But Phil, when you're looking at a recovery coach, we really want to make sure that we are protecting ourselves if we are going to continue to help people. We don't want to take the
Yeah.
risks. We don't want to stand on the wet rocks and hurting ourselves because we do no good for ourselves or for the recovery.
Yeah, I fully understand that. I just got the vision of like Brad Pitt in A River Runs Through It when
Right, right.
he hooks the biggest fish of his life and he like jumps off the rock and is going down current with the fish and fighting the fish and yeah, I don't know. It just makes it interesting to think about. Khalees, you don't even know that movie, do you? A River Runs Through It. Oh
It's a
man.
great movie.
Yeah, it's a wonderful movie. Um, so one of the techniques that I've talked about in this forum, it's not a technique, it's kind of like what Percy said, like diving into the word freedom. I love to explore, and this is part of my art, and one of my techniques is what gave you joy as a kid, you know? And because when I just start to discover what they had, and they say, "Well, we used to do this and do this," and you start to see their eyes light up, or a person's eyes. Do you do that anymore? No, I'm like, why not? Why not? What's changed? What's different? And I also know that you got to be careful where you jump in because not everybody's childhood was joyful, but I think most childhoods, they had some portion that they were remember doing that they thoroughly enjoyed to do. There's something in there. And that's just one technique that I found. So let's explore the techniques a little bit more about, and I'm kind of like wanting you guys to show me your tackle box. What lures do you have in there? What baits? Percy did a good job of saying the word freedom. What does freedom mean to you? Mine's childhood. What are some other things that you guys like to go to find out about your recoveries? This is where we all help each other here. So this is
Uh,
again where, yeah, go
so
ahead, George.
uh, I everything that everybody mentioned, I'm doing. So as you guys are talking, I'm saying, okay, man, I guess I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right?
Good.
So I bring in I do a meeting in the jail. It's a recovery group for the men, and then I do it for the women. And uh, you know, I'm not a lawyer or a doctor or anything like that. I remember saying to myself, what the hell am I going to talk about? I mean, honestly, what am I going to talk about? And and you know what? Some guy after a couple of meetings, one guy says, "So what are we going to call this? Find your happy place meeting?" And I went, "Yeah, dude, that's what we're going to call it." But all those techniques with these guys, I mean, there's a reason why you're here. What brings you joy? Because the jail I go to there, it's a county jail, and there's nothing. There's absolutely nothing. So everything they see is negative, and uh, and and I find that when you do talk about, before all this shit happened, what what excited you? What did you feel like? What were your dreams? And the conversation just goes off the hook. So it's really good to sit in this and to hear other people and their techniques, and that I'm on the right path. So
Yeah, you are. Those are good ones. So summarize, I have like some of the words you like are joy, hopes, dreams. We've had freedom. We've had childhood, and even like the happy place. What's that look like? A little, but I get it. So that's good stuff. Thanks, George. Sandy.
So I like to do future thinking. What might your life look like, in 3 years or 5 years if you made some some changes. I
Hmm.
think it gives them an image. I worked so many years with people who never thought they would even reach the age of 20, let alone
Yeah.
35 or 40. So they
Yeah.
don't have that future image.
That's a good point. Yeah. Thank you. Ed.
I love all the questions that I'm hearing. With time and when I have a little bit of confidence or trust built, I I think it's important for me also to understand not only what makes them full of joy, what motivates them, etc., but it also is helpful many times to understand what are their fears, what are their concerns, and what are their feelings that make them feel so uncomfortable. Because in knowing the negative, we can accent and supplement the positive.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. Thank you. All right. Next big question. I wrestled with doing this, but since we have time, I'm going to do it anyway. So, um, in the Bible, Jesus basically says, and I'm paraphrasing, he says, "Come and I'll make you a fisher of men." What the hell is he talking about? And what's that have to do with recovery coaching? And you don't have to do with the Christian, you don't have to do, it doesn't have to be Christian based. He said, "Come, I'll make you a fisher of men." And that, of course, means mankind, men and women. What did he mean by that? What is that? Kalisha's rubbing her head. I like it. I gave her a good question. Rubbing her eyes too. She's like, oh no. A fisher of men. What does that mean? And do you consider yourselves fisher of men and women? Let's
Absolutely.
go.
Absolutely.
Yes, tell me how, Percy.
Absolutely. Because I'm going to flip it and
Mm-hmm.
say I am a coach of many,
Mm-hmm.
coach of many. As I engage with my participants or my recoveries or I don't even want to say clients, I'm going to say customers,
Okay, sir.
right? I begin to engage and indulge in the empathy aspect of what they are going through.
Mm-hmm.
I done heard so many stories. I see why most people use because of the trauma, because of the mental health. So I can identify with all of that. And so as a fisherman, I seek their recovery. I seek their life of change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anybody else? Sandy.
I think I'm fishing by example. Like I'm walking in the world as an example. And so it goes to that sense of it attracts people. People want what I have. And so in that way, just my presence, I'm fishing for those who are hurting or suffering or in need.
Gotcha. Thank you. Mustafa.
Yeah, I consider myself a preacher of men because, like Sandy, I lead by example. The people I encounter every day is the people I hung out with when I was out there in that world.
Mm-hmm.
I know what it is to sit across the street at the church and charge my phone. I know what it is to be homeless, to go to all these places to eat. So now when they come in the door and they see me not in that life, and they're like, how did you get there? And I say, I lead by example. I show them that this is possible. This is not something that didn't happen overnight. But by my actions, by the way of my deeds, my showing, they see that I can do what he does. And then
Mm-hmm.
more apt to come into the door and keep coming.
Yeah. Thank you. Scott, I was wondering if you were going to jump in. I've missed hearing from you.
Hi, good morning, team. Um, um, Fisher of Men. To make change to, yeah, change, to be able to
Okay.
change. Yeah.
Mhm.
So that's all. It's been a great morning. I've been enjoying everything everybody's been sharing here. I've learned a lot. And it's what I thought it was going to be when I heard the word angler.
Okay.
I thought of fishermen and fishing and the back and forth between recovery and recovery coach. So this has been great this morning.
Yeah, thank you, Scott. Always good to see you.
Good to see you also.
Who's with you?
Oh, Alex,
Hi, Alex.
how you doing?
Good.
Recovery coach sitting at the Bridge Club, Lowell, Massachusetts.
Nice. Glad you're here. Thank you. Ed.
Um, I was raised Catholic, so this question has great significance for me because in the Catholic Church, the fish is a very symbolic uh, representation
It is.
of Jesus, which often is referred to as a savior, so to speak. If we look at fisher of men, it would be the desire to reach out to help save people, to reach out to save or provide salvation for people. Kind of in a recovery way, we are reaching out and working and are fisher of men in many ways when we reach out to restore people and help them find and rediscover their salvation, their new lives in recovery. That's my meaning.
Yeah. And Sarah, I do acknowledge what you said there. I'm not sure I understand either, so I just wanted to be with you with that. And then Stephen also talks about, he's quoting from one of the manuals, meaning of coach, the process of conveying valued people from where they are to where they might or they want to be, the fisher of men. Yeah, Sarah.
So I have a habit when I fish by myself, I get really uncomfortable if I catch something having to take the fish off the hook. So that's actually part of where I was getting at, is that like there is something, obviously it's not intended in the Bible, but that there can be a manipulation or what ultimately happens when you fish, right? So that's what I meant. It's just it starts to fall down. So when I fish by myself, and I haven't in a long time, I used to get needle nose pliers and I would smush my barbs
Yeah.
on the hooks because I just was so brutal, like. But what that means is that's really hard to catch fish because you might like hook them, but they don't stay because they don't have the barbs, right?
Right.
But yeah, so that's I don't know. It's like not that I expect the fish to like jump out of the water and come walk with me, but I think that that's part of it. And I'm not trying to be I'm not trying to be a jerk about the metaphor by any means, but I do think that is part of it.
No, I don't know. I didn't take that being I just thought it was a reasonable question. Yeah, it's perfectly good. Khalees.
So it's interesting because now in my book I'm writing the sacred angler. We're no longer an angler anymore. We're a sacred angler. And it's interesting because before you asked that question about come and I will make you a fisher of men, I put my sacred angler, right? Doesn't just fish for results, they fish for revelation. And when used with care, our tackle box becomes our ministry, which is actually kind of a ministry is kind of a religious term too. But then that quote, I thought about it was an invitation to a higher calling, an invitation to service, to serve others, to be of service. Uh, it's not just catching fish, like maybe we're creating transformation. Maybe we're helping others awaken to themselves. You are on mute.
You're muted.
But I'll keep talking if you want.
Why am I muted? How did that even happen? Michael did it to me. He said, I'm going to shut that guy up permanently.
Oh,
But Khalees, what type of coffee are you been drinking today?
nothing new.
Man, you're on fire.
I've been in a hole lately. I've been like in a hole where I've just really been thinking a lot. I
You're
I
holy.
also I really like
So
to
what'd you say? You said it was an invitation
to
to,
a higher calling.
so the fisher of men translates that if I'm fishing for you, let's say in this thing, I'm going to invite you to a higher calling.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I also put a fisher um of men becomes a guide for or a fisher of fish becomes a guide for human awakening. I think that, but maybe that could be applied to
No, no, I
fishing.
like that because that's kind of where I was going with all this too. I
But
kind
it,
of on the same wavelength.
but then I also think too, a fisher of men lives in such a way, what did I put? Lives in such a way that your being, who you are, becomes who your being calls others back to themselves. Like it calls
Right.
us, it's like that self-awareness. I am who I don't know if this,
No,
yeah.
so I would tie it all back to the idea of what we talked about in different ways in different times. It's like the soul, right? It's like,
I talk about the soul all the time.
yeah, like if it's a battery, if it's light, if it's energy that when we're fishing for men, we're asking people or saying, look, your battery is down or you need to recharge and what lights you up.
Yeah.
And we've also come to believe a lot of that might just be simply be love, right? You know, and all that.
Which I put that as well. This is why my fisherman, my angler turned into the sacred angler because we went down a whole soul path was the sacred angler now.
Scott, what do you think about all this?
I just wanted to share what I found. Qualities to admire in fishers of men. They are they are patient and determined. They know how to employ teamwork. They exercise faith. They have courage and are daring, patience and determination, and again teamwork.
Yeah,
Pretty
good.
cool. Pretty cool.
Yeah, it is cool. That's kind of what we do as coaches. I agree. Michael.
When Khalees was talking, I don't know why I visioned like a boat, like a recovery boat, right? When you got all these anglers sticking off the boat, but it's
Like
really
a
like
party
on the
boat?
fish, huh?
A party
Oh, yeah,
boat?
recovery boat. Yeah, recovery boat. So you got all these anglers sticking out the edge of the boats and stuff, and it's really on the fish to grab the bait. It's not on the fisherman to be like, yeah, I'm gonna put all these and I'm gonna surely catch all the fish that I want. Nah, it's really if the fish grab the bait.
Yeah, but so that kind of goes to what Sarah was doing. The analogy kind of talking about doesn't fall well because you got all these anglers, the fish grabs the bait, and then what happens to the fish? Becomes
Well,
someone's dinner. I don't know if that's
it
what we're.
does, or you could be the type of fisherman to catch a release.
Yeah, well, so then what's the point, you know?
The point is you got somebody on your hook.
Yeah, I know. So I guess it's right. The analogy does have it has its limitations here and there, but that's okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Phil,
Uh,
let me. Can I respond to that?
you can.
Because I notice a lot of people recoveries who relapse.
Yeah, yeah.
They take our information, which is debate,
Mm-hmm.
and they go back out
Mm-hmm.
to be pursued once again by another fisherman who's out to help them change their quality of life. So we might miss them on this excursion,
Yeah.
but somebody else might get them on their excursion.
Right. That's true. And it also could be what Khalees talked about. They could still be hooked and they're just pulling line, or we're letting them take some line and have their own ways for a while until they get reeled back in. Could be both and or either or, right? I
And they
like that.
come back and they come back or get reeled in with more information than they had the first time.
Right. And then they come back and then they get filleted and they get skinned and then they get frozen and they end up out in Khalees's yard. No, just in a bucket of water. I'm sorry. It's just a little going on. Steven, what do you got? How are you?
I'm good. I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we
I'm
can.
on a
Good.
I'm on a bus. Wow, you skinned, filleted, and frozen, and in Khalees's yard. Oh my! Uh, wow, I guess that would be reason enough not to return back to active use, huh?
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted to just kind of dovetail a little bit of what Khalees said about the sacred work, right? Like she made that analogy, which really resonated with me, which is really how I've tended to think about this work, right? Like, I mean, and not with all the religious context, or perhaps, but that this work is special, it's important, it's valued, and it's sacred for the participants, their families, the community, and all of us, right? That endeavor in it. And so that really resonated with me. And when you asked about the analogy of the fisherman, right? Just in terms of the context of for me, right? Thinking about as a seeker of those folks that we get an opportunity to engage in this sacred work with, right? And wherever they're at in that journey, right? Whether they're off the hook, taking line, reeling back out, right? That for me, I just like to think of the context of that really kind of special sacred work, right? Wherever they're at, like, we talk about states of change and change readiness and all that good stuff too. So yes, I wanted to add.
Yeah, thank you. All right. So we're kind of running. Anybody have any like last thoughts or anything they were thinking about overall about this concept of angler and recovery coaching? Any thoughts, comments, epiphanies, takeaways? Everybody good?
Great. I hope you do it again.
Yeah, well, I hope so too. We got another one scheduled for next month on the, I don't know, Michael knows off the top of his head.
Not off the
Eight.
top of my head, but I can find out.
No, I know. And we also probably have a topic already picked too, but I had 18 on my head, but I don't know if that's right or not. Maybe not. Anyway, we'll look for postings. Michael, send them out. Yeah, this definitely went into oh, I'll just give you a quick update since did I talk about coming off the trail last time? Yeah, so last time I was here, I was going to hike the Appalachian Trail. I got to Springer Mountain. I did 20 miles and my body kind of gave out. So, not in responding to I think it's from chemo, and I have like a very minor blockage of one of my coronary arteries. So, a couple on the 28th, I'm going to see a cardiologist and then my cancer doc and just checking that out. So hopefully it's a simple fix, but overall I'm feeling pretty well. Just couldn't handle like hiking up and down mountains now. I'm just putting it on hold. I'm going to give it a go again. So I was able to come back and do this. Right now I'm staying in a campground with my daughter Sam in Burlingame Campground. So we are having a good time there, and life is good. I appreciated this conversation more than you probably realize. I mean it from my heart that I facilitate best what I most need to learn. And I heard so many great things that I'll be thinking about for quite a while and have a whole page of notes, maybe not like Khalees, but maybe Khalees and I can get together and let me know. I'll put my new email in the chat. if you guys are interested in all and maybe like looking at or contributing to a piece we may or may not write on recovery coaching and angling, let me know via email, and we'll include you in the paper. Why not? Right? If you have some thoughts you wanted to add, pvalentine59@gmail.com. It's 11:30. Thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I needed it. And thank you so much. Hope you have a blessed day and a blessed week and
Thank
month.
you.